Valora stood at the edge of the crystalline cliffs, her azure skin catching the light of the twin moons and reflecting it in rippling patterns across the ancient stones. For 200 cycles, she had maintained her silent vigil over the astral peaks, just as generations of her kind had done before her. The wind rustled through her silver-white hair as her four-fingered hand tightened around her sentinel staff, its luminous core pulsing in rhythm with the sacred crystals embedded in the mountains behind her. No one visited the astral peaks. No one disturbed the Nevari sanctuary. This was how it had always been, how it should always be. Until tonight. The flash of light that streaked across the night sky was no falling star. Valora tracked its descent with narrowed amber eyes, watching as it carved a burning path before disappearing beyond the whispering forest. Moments later, a distant rumble vibrated beneath her feet. "Foreigners," she whispered, the word tasting bitter on her tongue. In 2 centuries of guardianship, this was her first breach, an unwelcome test of her dedication to the ancient vows. Valora closed her eyes, communing briefly with the living crystal network that connected all Nevari guardians. She sent a simple message: intruder, investigating, will neutralize threat. The response came as a gentle hum of approval through her crystal staff. No assistance needed. Valora was the most skilled of the current guardians, her aptitude for defensive arts unmatched among her people. This would be a simple matter. She descended the winding crystal path with practiced ease, her movements fluid and silent. The bioluminescent markings along her arms and cheeks dimmed instinctively as she approached the forest's edge. The Nevari evolved for stealth. Their natural camouflage allowed them to blend seamlessly with shadows when necessary. The crash site wasn't difficult to locate. A long gash had been carved through the ancient trees, ending at a strange metallic object half buried in disturbed earth. Smoke rose from its damaged hull, and pieces of debris glittered under moonlight. Valora had never seen such a craft, but ancient texts described similar vessels that once brought war and suffering to her world. She approached cautiously, staff at the ready, its crystal tip glowing with defensive energy. A hissing sound drew her attention to what appeared to be a door in the side of the vessel. It jerked and sputtered, struggling to open against a bent frame. With one powerful motion, the door finally burst outward, and a figure stumbled out, collapsing onto the forest floor. Valora's markings flashed briefly in surprise, not at the sight of a human, for their existence was known to her people, but at his appearance. He was tall for a human, though still shorter than her own willowy height. His skin was a warm tan, smudged with soot and what appeared to be blood from a gash across his forehead. His attire was unlike the battle armor described in Nevari histories. Instead, he wore some kind of flexible suit emblazoned with patches and symbols she didn't recognize. The human attempted to stand, failed, and slumped back against his damaged craft. His eyes, only 2, a strange limitation of his species, widened upon seeing her emerge from the shadows. "Well," he coughed, attempting a smile despite obvious pain. "Either I've died and you're some kind of angel, or I've crashed somewhere very, very far from the colonial fleet." Valora didn't understand all his words, but the translation crystals she wore as ear cuffs, standard equipment for all guardians, provided enough context. She remained silent, studying him with unblinking amber eyes. The human winced as he shifted position. "Not much for conversation. Can't say I blame you. I wouldn't be thrilled about a stranger crashing into my backyard either." He pressed a hand to his side, and Valora noticed the dark stain spreading there. "I'm Terran, Lieutenant Terran Kaler, navigation specialist on the research vessel Horizon." When she didn't respond, he added, "And you are?" Glowing, quite beautifully, I might add. Valora glanced down, realizing her bioluminescent markings had brightened without her conscious intent. She dimmed them immediately, annoyed at her body's betrayal. "You will leave this place," she finally said, her voice melodic yet firm, "once your injuries permit travel." Terran's eyebrows rose in surprise. "You speak English." "I speak Nevari, the crystals translate." She gestured to her ear cuffs. "Your vessel is damaged beyond repair. How did you breach our atmospheric shields?" "Atmospheric," he laughed, then winced at the pain it caused. "I didn't breach anything intentionally. Ion Storm knocked us off course, systems failed, and my escape pod's guidance was compromised. Pure bad luck, I assure you." He looked around. "Where exactly am I?" "The Astral Peaks, sacred territory of the Nevari people." She stepped closer, staff still ready. "Forbidden to outsiders." Ah, so I've not only crashed but trespassed. Stellar day I'm having. His attempt at humor fell flat against her stony expression. He tried to stand again, this time succeeding but leaning heavily against his vessel. Listen, I don't mean any harm. I just need to contact my ship, let them know I survived. Your ship is gone, Valora stated plainly. Our sensors detected its destruction in the upper atmosphere. The color drained from Terran's face. That's not possible. There were 23 people aboard. Something unfamiliar stirred in Valora's chest at the genuine shock and grief that washed over his features. Compassion, perhaps, an emotion she had little practice with after centuries of solitude. I speak what is true, she said, her tone softening marginally. No other vessels survived. Terran's legs seemed to give out, and he slid down against the damaged escape pod until he sat on the forest floor. His head dropped into his hands, shoulders shaking slightly. Valora stood uncertainly. Her duty was clear. Assess the threat, neutralize if necessary, remove all traces of outside contamination. The human appeared harmless now, but ancient texts warned of their deceptive nature. Yet something held her back from the coldly efficient response her training demanded. You are injured, she stated finally. He looked up, eyes reddened. Doesn't matter much now, does it? It matters if you wish to leave this place alive. She approached cautiously, crouching to examine his wounds. The council must be informed of your arrival. They will decide your fate. And what fate do you think they'll choose for me? There was no fear in his voice, only exhaustion and grief. Valora considered this. No human had set foot on Nevari soil in over 1,000 cycles. The council would be unpredictable. That depends, she answered honestly, on whether they believe you are like the humans who came before. And what were they like? His eyes met hers directly, an intimacy that made her uncomfortable. Destructive, deceitful, she paused, recalling the ancient histories. Dangerous. And what do you believe? Terran asked quietly. Valora's markings pulsed once, unconsciously. I believe you will die from your wounds before reaching the council if they are not treated. Against all protocol and centuries of training, Valora made a decision. She extended her hand to the injured human. I will help you, outsider, not because I trust you, but because death without judgment serves no purpose. Terran hesitated, then placed his 5-fingered hand in her 4-fingered one. The contact sent an unexpected warmth through her typically cool skin. Thank you, he said simply. As Valora helped him rise, the first rays of morning light crested the distant mountains, catching in the silver of her hair and the crystal fragments scattered across the forest floor. For the first time in 200 cycles of guardianship, she was leading a stranger deeper into the sacred territory she was sworn to protect. The crystal in her staff pulsed with warning, but she ignored it. The council would understand once they examined the human and confirmed he posed no threat. She was simply being pragmatic, preserving a specimen for proper evaluation. At least that's what she told herself as she guided Terran toward the hidden path that would lead them to the healing springs, all too aware of his hand in hers, and the strange sensation it awakened in her normally solitary heart. No, he moved closer, though still maintaining a respectful distance. Your markings are doing that thing again. The truth, Valora, you owe yourself that much, even if you don't owe it to me. She faced him, her amber eyes meeting his brown ones directly. Perhaps in 200 cycles of perfect solitude, I never realized how absolute the silence had become. Her markings pulsed slowly, revealing more than she intended. Your presence disrupts everything, yet I find I do not wish the disruption to end. It is illogical. The admission hung between them, more intimate than any physical contact could have been. Logic is overrated, Terran said softly. Where I come from, we have a saying, the heart has reasons that reason knows nothing of. The Nevari have no similar saying, she replied, her tone lighter than intended. Perhaps that explains much about our differences. His smile made her markings brighten involuntarily. So, how does one prepare to meet a council of crystal guardians? First, she said, extending a folded garment of shimmering fabric that seemed to capture and enhance the ambient light. You will need proper attire. Your damaged clothing would be considered disrespectful. Terran accepted the garment with obvious appreciation. This is beautiful. What's it made of? Crystal silk, harvested from the nests of loom weavers that inhabit the deepest caves. She selected a small vial of iridescent liquid. and this will help you withstand the ceremonial chamber's atmosphere. Our air contains trace elements that can be disorienting to non-Nevari. As Terran changed into the ceremonial robe, turning his back with a consideration for modesty that Valora found unnecessarily charming, she found herself contemplating the coming evening with uncharacter. The Grand Council Chamber of the Nevari was a testament to their reverence for crystalline harmony. Massive formations spiraled toward a domed ceiling where the twin moon's light was captured, refracted, and channeled through strategically positioned prisms. 9 elders sat in a semicircle, their skin tones ranging from the palest blue of morning skies to the deepest indigo of twilight oceans. All bore elaborate markings that glowed with the accumulated wisdom of centuries. Valora knelt at the chamber's center, head bowed, staff placed horizontally before her in the traditional posture of respect. "Guardian Valora," spoke Elder Nyxis, the most ancient of the council, her dark blue skin bearing so many luminous patterns that she appeared to be wrapped in living constellations. "You have detected an anomaly in your quadrant." It wasn't a question. Valora kept her markings perfectly neutral, a skill she had cultivated over centuries of service. "Yes, Elder. A vessel breached our atmospheric shields during the Ion Storm. It was destroyed, but a single survivor reached the surface." A ripple of alarmed patterns flashed across the semicircle of elders. "An outsider walks upon sacred soil?" Elder Thalix's markings pulsed with outrage, his green-blue skin darkening with emotion. "Why were we not informed immediately?" "The survivor was injured," Valora replied, careful to keep her tone even. "I determined that proper assessment of the threat required stabilization first." "And where is this outsider now?" Nyxis leaned forward, her 4 eyes narrowing. Here was the moment of choice, truth that would endanger Terran, or deception that would compromise her 2 centuries of flawless service. "Secured in a containment field near the crash site," she said, the lie forming more easily than she had expected. "I administered basic medical assistance to prevent death before interrogation." Elder Nyxis's markings shifted subtly. "The Luminary Festival begins tonight. The sacred crystals must be aligned during the moon's convergence." Her tone became grave. "The presence of an outsider during our most holy ceremony is concerning." "I propose the outsider be held in stasis until after the festival," offered Thalix. "Then we can determine appropriate action." "Stasis would prevent proper assessment of intentions," Valora countered, perhaps too quickly. "The outsider claims to be a navigator, not a warrior. His arrival was accidental." His, Elder Sherlana, whose azure skin was only slightly darker than Valora's, tilted her head curiously. "You have communicated extensively with this creature." Valora's markings betrayed her with a brief flash of unintended illumination. Basic communication was necessary to assess threat level. "And your assessment?" Nyxis asked. "Minimal threat, one unarmed individual stranded by circumstance." The council members exchanged glances, their markings having a silent conversation that even Valora, with her centuries of experience, could not fully interpret. "The human will be brought before us," Nyxis finally declared. "Tonight, before the Luminary Festival begins, you will present him, Guardian Valora, since you have established communication." "As the council wishes," Valora bowed deeper, hiding the relief in her markings. "However," Nyxis continued, her tone sharpening, "if this outsider proves dangerous, the responsibility falls to you. 200 cycles of service will not shield you from consequences." "I understand, Elder." Valora raised her head, meeting all 4 of Nyxis's eyes with steady determination. "I have never failed in my duty to protect our people." "See that you do not start now," Thalix added, his markings pulsing with suspicion. Dismissed from the council's presence, Valora maintained perfect composure until she was beyond the Crystal Citadel's boundaries. Only then did she allow her markings to reveal her agitation, glowing in rapid patterns that reflected her inner turmoil. She had lied to the council. In 2 centuries, she had never once broken protocol. Now she had committed multiple violations in less than a single-day cycle, all for an outsider who represented everything the Nevari had isolated themselves to avoid. The walk back to her dwelling passed in a blur of conflicting thoughts. When she arrived, she found Terran examining the crystal formations that illuminated her sparse living area, careful not to touch anything as she had instructed. "Your home is singing," he said without turning. Did you know that? The crystals resonate at frequencies just beyond normal hearing, but I can feel them vibrating. They respond to Nevari biorhythms, she replied, setting down her staff. You shouldn't be able to sense them at all. He turned to face her, and something in his expression, relief perhaps at her return, sent an unfamiliar warmth through her chest. The council, he asked simply. They wish to see you, tonight before the Luminary Festival begins. Terran's brow furrowed. Festival. Our most sacred ceremony. Valora moved to a crystalline basin where clear liquid shimmered with inner light. She dipped her hands, letting the purifying waters flow through her fingers. Once each 7 cycles, our twin moons align perfectly. Their combined energy activates properties in the master crystals that sustain our civilization. Sounds important. He approached cautiously, watching as she performed the ritual cleansing. Will my presence be problematic? Unprecedented, she corrected. No outsider has witnessed the ceremony in living memory. I could stay here, he offered. You could tell your council I escaped, or... I already lied to protect you, she interrupted, her markings flaring with an intensity that surprised them both. I told them you were contained at the crash site. I will not compound my dishonor with further deception. Terran's expression softened. You lied for me, why would you risk that? Valora turned away, busying herself with selecting ceremonial attire from a recessed compartment in the wall. I told you, logic dictates.